Welcome back to Motorsports Today. I'm Eddie Kalegi. Well, we've highlighted before one of the most interesting stories in NASCAR, a driver who was in the U.S. Navy. He's also owned a team in the NASCAR Xfinity Series and raced there. It's great to have him back on the show. Jesse Iwuji, thanks for joining us here on Motorsports Today. How's it going? What have you been up to lately?
Hey, what's up? How's it going? And thanks for having me on the show. And yeah, been busy, busy, busy. Not just on, just the race team side of things, but and all the other things I do between the Navy and my businesses and everything else. This year we're doing a part-time season with our team. So Andre Castro, who's one of our drivers, he's run a couple races now. We've done it in partnership with SS Greenlight Racing, and then I'm looking forward to hopefully running my first race here in the next couple months. Hopefully one of the super speedways. So that's what I'm working on right now.
Yeah, and I'm curious with that tie-in with SS Greenlight, and we've seen this in the Xfinity series. I think of like the Emerald Gase team from a couple of years ago. We've seen some of these small teams partner up together to try to get the best possible car out there. So, could you talk about that experience from your side, from the ownership side, and how we've seen some of these smaller teams band together in the Xfinity series lately?
Yeah, for sure. So everybody knows racing is super expensive, right? It's not cheap at all. If people knew, like, I mean, let's put, for example, for our team, if Jesse Iwuji Motorsports itself just goes out to the track to go run one weekend, minimum, we are, I mean, if we were ultra lucky, maybe 90 grand. If we were lucky, but for the most part, we're 100, grand plus to go to the track. I mean, we've had 130 grand weekends, and that's just to get to the track, go race, and then come back. Racing is very expensive. So sometimes there's other teams out there. The reason our costs are so high is there's a lot of things that we don't own that we have to usually rent, and when we do that, it brings our costs up, right? So when you partner up with a team like SS Greenlight, who's been around for a really long time, they have all their own stuff between haulers and people that have been working with them forever. There's all the things that they have. It helps lower their costs, even on the motor side of things. They have their own motors that they own. For us, we lease motors from Hendrick Motorsports. By doing that, you get a really, really good motor. It makes a ton of power, and it is a solid motor. You get a mechanic that comes with it, an engineer that comes with it, or engine tuner. You get all that whole thing, and you don't have any motor issues, and you make all the power in the world. It's great, but it costs a lot of money. When you own your own motor, well, you just have to worry about refreshing your motor every, X amount of races. Now, the motor that you own won't make as much horsepower as the Hendrick motor, but it's still a solid motor that will allow you to go out there and compete. So, yeah, it's the racing costs are expensive. So partnering up with a team like SS Greenlight, something that really helped us keep our costs down, being able to get to the track for the couple times we've gone so far between Portland and Chicago. But we look forward to hopefully doing some more with them and making it work. But yeah, that's the reason why teams do it, because it just helps bring costs down.
Yeah, I can imagine, it is a daunting task to field a team no matter how you shake it out in NASCAR. Now,
Oh
you
yeah.
mentioned Andre Castro. He raced for you guys last year too. What have you seen from him so far in his development? As you said, he's gotten some more experience. He's run a couple of road races this season. What do you see in Andre Castro and what has he brought to the table for you guys?
He's a really, really good road course racer. He's only gotten the opportunity to run road courses so far. I think he'll do great on ovals once he gets approved to run them. In NASCAR, when you're a new person in the sport, there's approvals, right? You can't just jump in and immediately go run whatever track you want. Some people have gotten that opportunity to do that, but that's not like normal. Usually, you got to like work through the system, which is like first you get approved to maybe run road courses or short tracks or both, and then you get approved to run mile and a half, and then you get approved to run super speedways. So there's like this ladder depending on how much experience you had prior to that in racing. So for him, he had ran a little bit of stock car racing in Europe, ran the NASCAR Euro Series for a few races. He's run some open wheel stuff here in the U.S. He's kind of been around, jumped around a lot of different things. Obviously, did a lot of karting when he was young. And because of all that, he's actually very, very skilled. What helps him a lot too is the sim. He spends a ton of time on the sim, has learned a lot from it, not just from iRacing, but we also bring him to the Chevrolet simulator in Charlotte, North Carolina. Each month we go out there, me and him, we jump on the sim, we train. He always does really, really well. And he's a kid who I think has definitely a lot of potential for sure. Hasn't had the most funding in the world, but for the money he's able to go fundraise and sponsorship he's able to put together, we've been able to run so far at least a couple races each year, together, which is awesome. So we look to hopefully grow it some more. We're out there hunting for some more sponsorship. The more we can put together, the more we could both run. So yeah, he's good, he's solid, and I think he definitely has a bright future. You know, once again, it's all funding dependent. I wish we had all the money in the world and we could just pay for it. It didn't have to find sponsors, but unfortunately, that is not the case.
Well, I wanted to ask you about that. I mean, the path as an owner to find those sponsors, because obviously there are different industries that are sponsoring NASCAR now. In the Cup Series, you might not see as many Fortune 500 companies as you did back in the 2000s, but they are finding different ways to get those sponsors. And of course, as new industries, new technology, we see new things that want to get their message out on NASCAR. So, from your ownership side, how has the sponsorship model of NASCAR, particularly in the Xfinity series where you've been owning a team these last couple of years, kind of evolved as of late?
It's different. It's different per team. It's different per driver. Everybody doesn't see the same amount of money. Everybody doesn't get the same amount of money. Just because you see a sponsor on the side of someone's car doesn't mean that sponsor is spending millions of dollars, right? There's sponsors who are all over people's cars and they've spent like 10 grand to be there. There's sponsors that are all over people's cars and they spent 100 or 200 grand to be there. It just depends on what that sponsor is trying to get out of it, what they want out of the entire event, or over whatever the marketing campaign they're doing. So sponsorship it's just an interesting thing in the sport. And sometimes there's sponsors on the car, you'll see it, and it's not some true sponsor that somebody went, found a company, connected with the right person there, was able to pitch them the right deal, and they, got convinced on the deal and then jumped in. It's not always the case, right? I mean, some of these sponsors that you see on the cars are, the drivers like, family money. Their parents own that company, or their uncle or grandma or granddad or whatever. So everything isn't always what it seems, right? It's not always just because there's a name on a car does not mean that a lot of money was behind it. Sometimes it is, but sometimes a lot of times it's not. I know in our case, I don't come from any money at all. Like my parents, they do well enough for themselves. That's it. So I've never, mom, dad never wrote any big check for me to go racing. Everything I've been able to get in racing has been either money I made myself through my businesses or money through sponsors and partners that we put together. And I don't think there isn't as many people nowadays being able to find true sponsorship is very, very hard. A lot of times it is just people who come from wealthy families who just have it. They can make it happen. I'm not saying it doesn't happen. There are people who are still finding real sponsorship, but I feel like it's just going down and down and down as time goes on. But every once in a while, something new pops up. A new company is like, hey, I want to be part of it. And next thing you know, boom, that's a surge of sponsorship into the sport. So it's all over the place. Money comes from everywhere, but at the end of the day, you just got to find it. However you can get it, just get it, as long as it's legal.
Yeah, that's what it shakes down to at the end of the day. But let's talk about some other topics in the NASCAR world. You mentioned the last time you fielded a car with SS Greenlight was that Chicago street race. It was the second time the Xfinity Series was there. At least this time you got to see the full distance. It was what, only 25 laps in 2023 with the rain, and unfortunately the rain affected the Cup race. But in general, another great weekend, I'd say, for the sport in Chicago. And while we don't know for sure what the future holds with the street race, what are your thoughts on street racing and Chicago as a market in general for NASCAR and what that future should look like?
Honestly, I think it's one of the coolest races that's on the schedule right now. We definitely need to keep it. It needs to keep on going and going. It's a great time of the year to have that race. In some ways, the weather was perfect that weekend. I wish there was like a time of year in Chicago where it's like it's guaranteed to be like in the 60s or 70s, like always, and not be like rainy. If we could find that time, that'd be great. But oh well, it was still a good time. Chicago's a beautiful city, especially where we do it there. The backdrop, the view, the buildings, the skyscrapers, running through the streets, and even there's like one camera angle, I believe. I think it's like on that last little stretch before they make the right hander onto the front stretch. I think the camera that looks down that road behind it, you can see traffic like normal street traffic because it's raised high enough, I think, because of the bridge that you can see all the street traffic behind it. So it's super cool. You see race cars flying through there, and behind it are like street cars just still driving around. Like it's like super cool. So very cool venue. It's like in a way our Monaco, and I think it's something that needs to stay. For those who are hating on it are number one, probably haven't gone to the race. Number two are just negative people to begin with and hate on everything no matter what. It's an amazing event. It's a beautiful event. I mean, if you go to it, you'll see it's just a beautiful event. I think it's cool. It's awesome. I think the logistics need to get a little bit better though, as far as where the teams are placed, how we're getting traffic through and all that stuff. This year was definitely like 5 times better than last year, as far as logistical side of it. But I still think there's ways we can make it even better. We need to put some more cross bridges, at least for the teams and industries people. If we can do that, that'd be so helpful.
Yeah, well, we both know sometimes NASCAR fans are difficult to please, but a lot of them are happy with the Chicago street race, and the ratings have certainly shown in these last 2 years. Now, I asked Parker Kligerman this question a couple weeks ago. If not Chicago, what other cities would he like to see maybe a street race happen? Of course, New York is the dream, but for you, what are some other sites you'd like to see or untapped markets you'd like to see NASCAR maybe explore in the future?
If they wanted to do another street course race, I'm telling you, the best, the most perfect place to do it would be San Diego,
Really?
California. The weather will be perfect year round. The city is beautiful, especially if you run it right there on I forget what the road is right there next to the water. But that road right next to the water that goes to the airport from the city. Like if we run it in that area, it'd be beautiful, beautiful, perfect weather, great place to do it. San Diego would be the place for sure, guaranteed.
So I know you're a car guy. I saw you posting your Corvettes and stuff and all that on Instagram today. So another point of emphasis at Chicago was NASCAR unveiling their EV prototype. And we know the future is electric. We don't know exactly how much that is going to affect racing product, but NASCAR is clearly exploring developments in that spectrum. Your thoughts on what they revealed and what we might see down the line with electricity involved with NASCAR?
Yeah, so yeah, they unveiled it, which is awesome. I think having some type of series developed that has the EVs racing would be cool. I definitely don't think we need to replace all of our series with EVs. I don't think that's the route to go, and I hope that's not the route that they go. But I think we do need a series that has it, right? And I don't know, maybe they turn one of the series into it. Definitely don't turn the Cup series into it. Don't turn the Xfinity series into it as well. But maybe there's another series that they have EVs running. I don't know, but I think it's cool. It's interesting. I think really the best win-win for everybody is to not do EV, but to do a hybrid, right? So you have some electrification, you still have the V8 motor, you pair those two together. It's going to make a really, really awesome race car, very fast and heavy, but very, very fast. I think that would be the way to go, is to do some type of hybrid. On the if you just do EV only, I just think it's going to turn off too many people. When you go to racing, racing is supposed to be this raw, somewhat old school type of thing. Racing has been going on since the beginning of the world, right? The moment there was two people on Earth that were trying to get to one place quicker than the other. That's when racing began, right? So it still needs to kind of have that somewhat like it still always remember its roots, remember its heritage, and have some type so have it has to have some type of combustion engine factor to it, because if we take that away, then it's just not going to be as exciting. Not that it still can't be cool, but it will take away a big part of the excitement that a lot of people have been excited about it for a long time.
Eddie Kalegi here with Jesse Iwuji on Motorsports today. Now, we're talking about the future a little bit, but NASCAR just harkened back to the past, returning to the Indianapolis Oval that they raced at for 27 years, went to the road course for 3 years, but the Brickyard 400 returns. We've seen NASCAR schedule change dramatically in these last few years, Jesse, not just the street race, but changing a lot of things up. But we've seen them also circle back to a couple of things. For example, the dirt at Bristol for a few years, they go back to the asphalt, and now we see the Brickyard 400 return. Your thoughts on the Brickyard 400 as a race? I know a lot of people view it as a crown jewel, and the racing product we saw as NASCAR returned to the oval for the first time since 2020.
Yeah, we had a different package with it, at least on the Xfinity side. I don't know what the Cup guys had, but on the Xfinity side, we basically, they threw on these taper spacers, and it was in a way, it was like racing Daytona at at Indy, without it being crazy, crazy pack racing where we're all like, 2 by 2, 40 car or 38 cars down or whatever. But Yeah, it was interesting. It was cool. I didn't drive it myself in real life, but I did test it on the simulator at Chevy. So it was interesting driving that car on there, and it was just very weird at first getting up to speed. The car is like so slow getting up to speed. You're like, whoa, this is weird. Like you think you're supposed to have a lot of power, and then you don't because you're so used to it having power there. But I think it's cool. It's definitely something interesting that uh I hope they keep doing. I do like this kind of doing a super speedway package on some of these tracks like this. I think it makes it more interesting. They're doing it again for Michigan. They did it for Indy. They're doing it for Atlanta. There's other mile and a half tracks out there that probably would be great having that package on it. I think Texas would be interesting having it because Texas is such a very unique mile and a half. Vegas, Kansas, you name it, all these tracks, try something different. See how it is. Because the normal package is like, I don't know. I don't think it's that exciting.
Yeah, I feel that you on that. It's good to experiment. It's good to try different things, see what works, see what doesn't. Jesse, before we let you go, you've made 33 starts now between Xfinity and trucks, and you mentioned at the beginning, hoping to get back in a car soon. Of the tracks that you have not gotten to race at yet in the NASCAR National Series, what are a couple that are on your bucket list that you want to get the chance to drive at for the first time?
Yeah, so I ran Martinsville in trucks and I really had a fun time. It was a very, very cool race. I would love to do it in Xfinity. But in National Series, what haven't I run? I haven't run Sonoma National Series. I ran it in K&N West when I ran K&N West. But I haven't ran National Series. I think that would be cool to get back there and run that track again. Uh, Bristol, I haven't run National Series. That would be very cool and fun to go run. Watkins Glen would be very interesting. And what other tracks am I interested in? Yeah, those ones for the most part, I think. I think maybe even one day Chicago Street Course.
Well, good stuff. NASCAR's Renaissance man, a driver and owner. And oh, by the way, he also served in the Navy. Jesse Iwuji. Jesse, thanks for taking the time. We really appreciate it.
Yeah, for sure. Thanks for having me on the show, and hopefully everybody has a good day.